I like to point out the fastest horse in the race, cryptos, have had an okay quarter. They went up about the same. The Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index went up more than the Nasdaq. It should, because it trades at basically a much higher volatility, but it's showing divergent weakness. And we're all getting bullish Bitcoin because we're supposed to get that ETF in the US. That's still an if statement. So I look at it going towards, let's say, by the next 6 months. First, so I hope you're right. I firmly hope you're right that we're going to get this continued. No, we're not going to have a recession. Everything's fine. Fed can keep tightening. And the biggest pump in liquidity that's dumping is not going to matter. To me, it's the delayed reaction. Then the numbers I'm seeing are specific. And this is one thing I did expect, is the market to get all excited because inflation's dropping rapidly. But that's what happens in depression.
Mike McGlone, Bloomberg Intelligence senior commodity strategist and renowned financial analyst, with extensive experience in analyzing various asset classes. In terms of the crypto market, McGlone believes that the possibility of BlackRock or other major players launching a Bitcoin ETFs, which could have a significant impact on Bitcoin. Moreover, he believes the U.S. Federal Reserve continuing interest rate hikes this year, weak U.S. dollar liquidity, and Nasdaq 100 stock index reaching its peak are major obstacles to the upcoming Bitcoin rally. During the interview, McGlone, he expressed his belief that the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust will continue to thrive, as it will help to narrow the spread. Additionally, he predicts that the introduction of Bitcoin ETFs will bring Bitcoin further into the mainstream. Recently, Mike tweeted that equity bear market needed for Bitcoin to shine. The ratio of Bitcoin's price to the Nasdaq 100 stock index was at about 2x on June 22, a level first reached in 2017, which may indicate a performance impediment for the crypto. The ratio of Bitcoin's price to the Nasdaq 100 stock index was at about 2x on June 22, a level first reached in 2017, which may indicate a performance impediment for the crypto. It makes sense that the asset some refer to as the fastest horse in the race reached a new high versus the equity gauge in 2021 on the back of the biggest ever pump in liquidity, but the hangover stage could be more enduring. Our graphic shows USM2 money supply at about -5%, the lowest in our database since 1960. Money supply typically doesn't matter unless it reaches extremes, and the rules of liquidity are currently unfavorable for risk assets. Bitcoin may eventually transition to perform more like treasury bonds and gold and do well in a recession. During the interview, the discussion revolved around the bullish narrative for risk assets. However, this bullish sentiment has implications. It keeps the Federal Reserve in tightening mode and has led to a general bullishness in the market, while cryptocurrencies, except for Bitcoin, have underperformed. Meanwhile, McGlone anticipates Bitcoin eventually reaching $100,000. He also questions whether this can occur during a potential market downturn in the equity market. We will now bring you clips of Mike McGlone from his interview with Scott Melker. Before we proceed further in this video, please make sure to subscribe our channel and click the bell icon to stay updated.
Here's the key thing I want to point out is Bitcoin right now is basically 2 times the annual volatility of Bitcoin is basically 2 times that of the Nasdaq. When it first reached the current ratio versus the Nasdaq, about 4 and change or so, that was 6 years ago, and it was 8 times, almost 9 times the volatility. So here's what's happening. Bitcoin is mainstream. Yes, now finally we're going to be able to push a button, and there'll be less leverage going in. Your long-term accumulation people going and buying in. I do fully expect it's going to get to 100,000 eventually, but ask yourself this, is this going to happen with the tide going out in the equity market, which I expect? Been wrong. Alex, you're right. I've been wrong, but you got to be careful pointing out your views, you're long Bitcoin based on what happened to Bitcoin, what's going to happen to it now. I'm pointing out the facts is it's going into the mainstream fastly. It's squashing the volatility. Remember the spreads we saw? What's the last big vestige of that is GBTC. I fully still am bullish GBTC because it's going to narrow that spread. But what's happening is all that cash and carry that was in futures, that was seeing people saying, oh, you didn't get a good leverage, and it's still way too expensive to trade in futures. It's getting squashed fast. This ETF is going to just bring it more in the mainstream. But that's what, if we all agree on this bullish narrative for all these risk assets, you know what Benjamin Disraeli says, it's one thing about widely expected consensus that usually don't happen. And that was definitely what happened in 1H. As most people were bearish equities, guilty. Bearish equities, obviously expected a bounce. I didn't expect this much, but now what does it mean is what we're really moving into. And I look at it as, okay, it's keeping the Fed on that tightening mode. It's got everybody bullish and long, and cryptos have underperformed. Now, Bitcoin on a risk-adjusted basis is basically, it's got a 2x the risk of the Nasdaq on a volatility, to annual volatility, basically kept up with the Nasdaq. But if I look at the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index, the whole space, with the exception of Bitcoin, it was a poor quarter. If you look at it risk adjusted, you're taking that much extra risk, you better be doing better than the stock market. So I asked myself, that's great to make money, but what happens if this tide goes out in 2Q and 2H? So let's look at ourselves by end of this year. Our Bloomberg economics team expects unemployment's going to be inching higher at 4.3%. Look at that body in motion. It hasn't even changed yet. And expect a mild recession. I still love that mild recession. Now, obviously, those of us who've been expecting recessions have been wrong completely, but I fully expect just a normal historical recession, reciprocal to the amount of liquidity we pumped and dumped from the system. And also a key thing that's really changing is there's been a lot of extra liquidity from people not having to make their student loan payments. That's off. We've had some major government programs. Those are going to be not ending, but curtailed soon as we get to election season. But for me, the bottom line is, yes, maybe we'll get lucky and get that announcement that BlackRock will get that that Bitcoin ETF. And then, of course, all the other people like the Winklevoss twins and everybody's been complaining for 10 years will get kind of upset, but we'll go back there. But that's the key thing. That's an if statement. And then we have to ask ourselves in cryptos. And this is a sense I got a year ago in crude oil when I looked around and everybody I spoke to was so bullish. And I was called the idiot room. I really appreciate being called the idiot in a room. I just sensed so much bullishness. Because the market went up. And if you look at the details of a broad index, it's really trading very poorly versus the equity market, which is going up a lot.
During the interview, Mike expressed his bullish long-term view on Bitcoin. However, he also shared a perspective that it is more likely for Bitcoin to experience a temporary dip below $20,000 than to sustainably reach $40,000. However, a chart putting Bitcoin up against the Nasdaq stock index suggests that the top crypto asset is merely gearing up for an explosive push higher. For weeks now, tech stocks have been surging, while cryptocurrencies have lagged behind. The change in the ratio between Bitcoin and the Nasdaq could suggest that crypto is about to catch up to stocks in a major way. Mike emphasized that Bitcoin's volatility is currently twice that of the annual Nasdaq volatility when it first reached a similar ratio several years ago. He pointed out that Bitcoin's performance needs to outpace that of the Nasdaq in order to be a more attractive investment. Mike expressed his concerns about the IRS cracking down on tax evasion related to cryptocurrencies. If one holds a bearish outlook on the stock market and expects a divergence between stocks and cryptocurrencies, it might present a favorable opportunity. Let's get back to interview.
I completely agree with that. I'm bullish Bitcoin long term. I think it's going higher, but I think it's more likely to sustain and maybe print below 20 than sustain above 40 if I'm right about the equity market going down and our whole economics team is right. The key question I want to ask is, so it's the same ratio right now at about 4.7 versus the NASDAQ. I'm sorry, 2 point. Yeah, it's 2, just double the NASDAQ. And it first traded at 2017. And if you look at it, only has popped up big when we had that massive pump in liquidity, and it's come back down. Now we're stuck here. Volatility is declining. It's coming in the mainstream. So I needed to outperform the NASDAQ, and so far it's kind of on a 7-year basis. If you had bought the NASDAQ 7 years ago, you're doing the same thing. And the thing is, the difference about being long the Nasdaq, you got AI going for you, and you got the Fed going for you. Because if Nasdaq goes down, typically the Fed will help you. If Bitcoin goes down, the Fed doesn't care. The CME open interest is right about the all-time high. It's fully expected. There's a bull market. And that's one thing I really enjoyed pointing out last year when everybody was bullish commodities and open interest was going down, and the Bitcoin is going down, but open interest is going up. I'm like, well, that's not going to last. And Bitcoin bounced and commodities went down. Now the point is, we've had that bounce. We've bounced 100% from the lows, and now everybody's bullish. And the fundamentals might be tilting the other way. I look at it as, okay, buy low, sell high. But as far as that, the key thing I think the smart people are doing, Alex, you're involved in this, is probably buying dips, adding longs in Bitcoin and selling everything else. I mean, look what happened on Friday. We saw that little move in Bitcoin, and then we lifted some of those shorts and some of those positions in the alts. I see this as the IRS is coming after you. I mean, it's serious. We know this. I remember seeing this in the trading pits. I had a brother who wasn't paying his taxes. They went to his account and cleared it out. You think there's people in cryptos all paying their taxes? I mean, Kraken was crap. They're going down to on Kraken today. I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to find out that a lot of the people who weren't paying taxes, all that information is going to be coming out. It's just logical. I mean, I've seen it so much when you can kind of get away with it for a short term and greed comes in there. So then I look at this 25,000 of them. That's massive purging, still way overdue in the broad space. Bitcoin's going to come out ahead, but the whole thing might go lower, just Bitcoin going less. It's just the key thing you have to ask yourselves. If I'm long cryptos or long Bitcoin now, what's my position? What's my view on the stock market for the second half? If you're bearish the stock market and you expect that divergence, I like, yeah, good luck. Maybe, hopefully that'll happen. I've been hoping and waiting for that forever. And I still see, man, it's still trading like leveraged stock market. And that's the way I look at it. Except the rest of the space is trading like like more sellers on every rally.
Considering the ongoing bullish sentiment surrounding Bitcoin and the anticipation of potential catalysts, such as the introduction of Bitcoin ETFs, there is optimism for its long-term growth. However, it's important to recognize the challenges that lie ahead, including the tightening stance of Fed and potential market downturns in the equity market. Mike McGlone suggests a bullish Bitcoin projection as analysts expected that by 2030, $100,000 mark could be achieved. Will Bitcoin be able to sustain its upward momentum and reach new heights even in the face of potential obstacles? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to show your support towards our channel by giving this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos covering more interesting topics. Thank you for watching.